What's up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York. We are at the Hilton Inn Hotel in the Financial District, and today we are here with one of Canada's longest-running rock veterans. We are here with the Guess Who. Thank you all for being here.
Yeah, baby.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's
Excited.
so awesome to have you here. So your newest record is "The Future Is What It Used to Be," with an emphasis on the "is." I like that.
As opposed to ain't.
Yep. I've seen that word "ain't" too many times. Just is, quick and simple. Let's just give a rundown. How was the making of the record?
That's a difficult question to answer because it was done in so many different parts. But where it started with was getting some demos together. We all live in different cities, so you can imagine what that's like. There's a lot of over the internet listening back and forth and commenting, but it culminated with recording the bed tracks at Blackbird Studios in Nashville. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Gary.
Yeah. How was the making
Blackbird Studios, a wonderful place, analog and old school. It had a lot of the old equipment, the old board that we recorded all our hits on.
Wow.
Neve console, and had 26 sets.
That was a coincidence.
Yeah, 26 sets of drums and Hofner bass, like Paul McCartney played, and we used some of that stuff. So for me, it was kind of a trip back to where we finished recording in 1975.
Wow.
And I never thought I would ever do that again. So
Wow.
Yeah, they
It
have
was
a
very-
pretty impressive array of vintage instruments and recording gear there.
Was it like the V60, the 60-channel Neve console? I had to take apart one of those one time, so it was
It wasn't that one, but it was.
It's an 8078.
87.
8078.
Yeah.
Oh my.
It's the biggest one in the later 70s model of the Neve. And it's ridiculous. It's the same board that recorded Steely Dan's Asia.
Oh wow.
So it was from LA originally, and then they brought it over. John McBride brought it over.
That's an impressive resume for a console. I can tell you that much.
Yeah. Well, it's recorded a number of amazing records since, so.
Yeah. Now, one question I was curious about with the making of this record, being that the Guess Who has been around for so long at this point, did you guys has the Guess Who always taken a new approach to the making of every record, and you kind of like to experiment, especially with members coming and going, or does the Guess Who at this point kind of have like a formula that they stick with and have like a template in the songwriting process?
Wow, it's an interesting question. But I'll start with that to say that this is the first album in over 20 years
Yeah.
that the band's done. So it predates the three of us, right?
Yeah.
And then really it started with bringing in pieces of the puzzle to get to here. Once we got to here, which Rudy being the last piece of the puzzle, it just kind of made sense. It was like this is the right combination. This is what we're gonna do.
All right.
Do you have anything to add to
Yeah,
that? Because the other bands were
it's
just
kind
playing
of
hits.
it's kind of a non-comparison because the original band all lived in one city. We lived 3 miles from each other,
In
4
Winnipeg.
miles. Yeah. So you got 5 guys living in 5 different cities. So we have to come together. We have to practice, which we did basically both at sound checks, and we did a kind of a formal rehearsal before we went in to lay the bed tracks. But yeah, we're because of where we are in our lives now, our recording method is what it is due to travel, living, commitments. You know, we have personal commitments to family.
Pooping.
So we're kind of pooping is a good one. Yeah, we have to.
Pooping.
We haven't fitted in that yet today. So that we're all.
After you, we're gonna poop.
Yeah, we're gonna do that.
As long as that gives you artistic inspiration.
Why not?
So
Well,
really,
that's shit,
you
man.
could say that with the start of this album, I feel like we're just starting the process of how we would continue with the next record and the next record, and I'm being very optimistic, and the next record.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, being that it has been 20 years since the last Guess Who record, it's fair to say with new members, especially Rudy being the last piece of the puzzle. I know that, Rudy, you've played with a lot of other bands as well, so I'd imagine that you're able to bring in a lot of new elements into the Guess Who, and it is kind of like a fresh start. It's not just picking up where you left off and making a new record.
Me personally, it's
Yeah.
kind of like having like a toolbox, but there's only going to be certain tools that are going to be the best tools for the job.
Yeah.
So I have to bring into the Guess Who what is the best for the Guess Who, rather than just bring all of these other elements that are not necessary.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, I know that you, correct me if I'm wrong, you used to also play with Ozzy as one of
Yeah.
your, and
Yeah.
so, that's obviously very different from the Guess Who.
very different. But then I also play with Blue Oyster Cult,
Yeah.
which is kind of like the same era, not genre, but necessarily about the same era. So there's certain aspects of the era that are similar. So you bring those elements into I bring those elements personally into the band for the role of the bassist.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'd imagine you have to take a new approach to each project. It's
Absolutely.
not like you could be like, oh, I got this idea and let me totally
No,
make
they
it.
have to be specific to the Guess Who.
Of course. Of course. Now, one thing that really caught my eye is when Chip sent me the promo for this record, The Future Is What It Used to Be. That's not just a standard album title. It just seems like it's like a statement. Was there a specific meaning that you guys had in making this record?
Well, first of all, the future ain't what it used to be is a famous malapropism from Yogi Berra. I was a big Yankees fan, and
You're saying that in the right city.
I'm known to say these Yogi Berra-isms, so that's where that came from. But Gary came up with the idea that why do we call it future? Future is what it used to be, because saying is, first of all, brings you into the present, right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
It brings you into the present.
And it's more positive.
And it's more positive. Like he mentioned, and I wouldn't have thought of that, because to me it was just a laugh. I thought it was funny because of the I know what he's trying to say, but it makes sense at the same time, even though it doesn't make any sense at all. You know what I'm saying? Hence the malapropism. But he was saying that instead of having a negative approach to it, let's have it a positive.
Yeah, we had no
But-
time and no sugar, and
Yeah.
American women stay away from me.
But-
There was a somewhat chip on the shoulder negative thread that ran through a lot of the Guess Who material, and I thought this would be
Right.
this is a happy time.
You're right.
You know,
Exactly.
we're very optimistic about the record and what we've created and maybe what we go on to create.
But when you said it, everybody kind of went, yeah, that's the right thing to do. You know what I mean? Like I said, outside of the positive aspect to it, saying the future is what it used to be is what's happening now. And that's all that matters is now. Class is over, buddy.
As somebody who's interviewed so many doom metal bands, it feels so good to hear a band with an optimistic outlook on life.
Yeehaw!
I've had too many where it's like the world's a shit. Like,
God hates us all. That's
Wait, come in the van with us later.
yeah, exactly. I'm going to interview I Hate God after this. You can only imagine.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but so was this meaning that you had? Was this like? Did you write music according to this meaning, or It seems like everything kind of happened organically, and you just kind of
The
let things
title
happen.
was the last thing to come.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Because we had to come up with one.
Yeah,
It's difficult. I think we threw a few things around, but
Yeah.
nothing kind of stuck. It was
But each song is pretty unique unto itself, and they don't necessarily, the only thread is that it's us. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have a theme like some concept records do.
Yeah.
We just kind of said, here's the collection of songs. What is this chapter of the band about? And
right.
that's where we
So what you're
discuss.
saying is the title of the album refers to the band as it exists now,
Yeah.
not the songs themselves, but the entity that is the Guess Who.
Okay. Do you think with all the different formations of the band though, that allowed, because there's some bands, especially when you have songs as classic as like American Women, sometimes you could become like a slave to your own success, and like maybe you kind of have to stick with this. I'd imagine that with the new formation of the band, it almost allows you guys to experiment and try different sounds, right?
I suppose to a degree.
Well, yeah, but if you go beyond the singles and listen to the 14 albums out there are cuts that you would listen to and go, "What's this? This isn't the Guess Who." I mean, you have to go that far to listen to the stuff. So this band is capable of playing whatever it wants to play. You know, and
Well, our job was to write the best
yeah,
songs we could.
we wanted to return to the rock and roll era. You know, the people that all influenced us growing up, the Beatles and the Stones and the Who and Zeppelin, and that's the kind of like the magic era of the group,
The era.
the era of the group, not the American Idol, which is a single singer. Not that I have anything against singers, but it's as I saw Ringo talking to Dan Rather in the trailers for the new season, he said, "I'm a band guy. I'm a band guy. We're band guys."
Well, that seems to me like if you're in a band, that gives you the advantage over like a solo artist, as you were saying, because you could get different perspectives, you could
Exactly.
get different ideas.
And it's somewhat of a democracy as well, because you know nobody ever has the same opinion. You have 5 opinions,
yeah.
No, but
4 or 3 or whatever.
You kind of work it out. And
Right. But when you're just a solo artist, obviously, you know, it's all on your shoulders.
The pressure's all on you.
It's almost harder. You know,
Yeah.
I always felt bad for Elvis for that reason.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was in that Eagles documentary. Don Henley said the same thing. He said, you know, being in a band, you go through the good and the bad together. But by yourself, it's just you.
You're on your own.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You're on your own. Now, as being that you guys were involved in different projects, when you guys would experiment outside of the Guess Who and going back into the Guess Who, is it a different mind frame depending on who you work with?
Of course, it's like anything, though. I mean, it's never the same. The reason that this entity is magic is because it's these people in the story.
Yeah.
Because you need to nurture anything. That's why, you know, you want me to give you a good example. You take like a top 40 circuit where you have these bands playing covers or bands, and they'll have a different member every night. Right? They'll have a different guitar player, a different singer, different drummer, you know, because everybody subs in and out and this and that. These bands, they're just playing music. They're not playing together as one, and that takes time, right?
Definitely.
Like anything.
Definitely.
But I will say that because of the experience level of every member of this band, it helps to expedite that process because we've all been through it to a certain degree. Is that right, guys?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's
You guys have experience on your resume.
Exactly. So when we come together, we kind of already know what to do. Right? We're not starting out in a garage at this point. You know, we've all done big tours with other bands. You know, and so we've all been in this situation with other bands. So it's we can get this over with, this first layer over with right away. But the next step is to start developing our own sound, and that's what Gary was alluding to before. It's what is the future going to be?
Yeah, definitely.
Plus, you know, the experience also gives you appreciation of what you are, you know. For example, after all the experience that I've had in the music industry since 1981, I really appreciate not only the musicianship, but also the kindness and the chemistry that we have in this band.
Yeah, absolutely. And one question I was really curious, and I didn't find out about this until we actually started this interview, is being that you guys are all in different cities, you know, you're not playing in a rehearsal space or a studio 24/7. So, and most bands, you know, they usually live within a couple of blocks from each other.
Or together.
Yeah, or together on a tour bus for like 6
on
months
top
out of the
of each
year. Oh God.
But you're really describing young bands.
Yeah. Well, does maybe being in different cities help you guys gain different inspiration as well?
No, because
I
it's our
think-
family life,
Yeah,
right? It's
exactly.
personal.
Yeah.
Planning, you have to be really diligent in your planning. We're all professionals, we've all done this for a long time. So if we're really good about putting together an itinerary, when we do get together, we get a lot accomplished. We just have to be very organized about it, very focused, so.
Okay. Yeah, because sometimes band members need a break from each other, and that's how they're able to regroup.
We get a
and-
break every 5 days.
Yeah, that happens anyway. You know, we have,
There's a lot of other, I think there's a lot of bands who would be very envious by that.
sure, but
Wow.
they have to do the 30, 40 years first.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the requirement.
Yeah. Does playing music for this long at this point, I mean, versus back in the early days to now, how different of an attachment do you have with, you know, your music, whether it's the instrument that you play or the songs that you've made? Like, do you have a completely different outlook on your art now as opposed to back then?
Yeah, me personally, it has to do with the amount of information available on social media, like YouTube.
Yep.
To me, YouTube is like a university. You know, I go in there, and if I want to learn a certain instrument or a certain genre of music, that's my source, and I am so devoted to it on a daily basis. Where I am on the road or at home, it's the same for me. Being able to learn is definitely, you know, it's my greatest experience.
The internet has been such a tremendous tool. Instead of like just having to go all the way to a store to pick up a chord book, now you can just go on the internet. How do I play in this?
You can watch somebody do it.
Yep. Sorry, music
And not
teachers, I'm
only
kind of
that,
ruining your business. But
you don't have to. For example, if I was going to take time to go to school in LA, it's impossible because I'm working. But to be working, and when you have the time available to actually be learning rather
It's
than
amazing.
playing a video game or watching a soap opera, it's incredible.
Well,
Yeah.
it has a million advantages, but I'll just add real quick. One of the downfalls I see is that I'd love to see more kids having more interaction. We come from an era of garage bands where we would get together and we would play together, and that's how we learned a lot of our chops. You know, unfortunately, what I see now with a lot of kids is they become virtuosos
yep.
on YouTube, and they're amazing, but they don't have.
So they
as
play with
much
a band.
Yeah.
Play with a band.
And
I have
that's why do you think so many like bands nowadays, like I've yet, there's only one band I could think of, which is Rammstein, that has not had a single lineup change, like ever, because people think they know each other from chatting on the internet. Oh, show me this chord, and then they go live on the road together, brushing their teeth on the side of the highway with bottled water, and then they realize, oh my God, I hate this person.
Yeah. Well,
That's awesome.
Is that our fate? I know, be quiet.
I would certainly hope not.
Oh, boy.
well,
No, we started out like that, and we're the opposite.
Yeah.
We
Thank you.
just appreciate it the older we get, and you do. You're
Yeah.
still a work in progress, like you were when you were younger. You just have more to draw from.
Yeah, and what I like from what we were talking about is, despite playing music for so long, it seems like you guys are always learning, right? It's not like, all right, I know what to do at this point. It seems that you guys like to challenge yourselves and take new approaches each time.
I'm just learning to be a good rock drummer. I don't know if I have enough time left, yo. So, you know what I mean?
Go on YouTube.
Learning means playing with other people.
Time left.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I always feel like, yeah, there's so much to learn, and
So little time.
yeah, you never. I think when you're finished learning, then you're finished.
exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly. And the final question I would like to ask before we move on, and I want to thank you guys so much for your time today. It's fair to say that with everything you guys have done, that many younger musicians have said they've taken inspiration from you. Does this at all inspire you guys in a certain way?
when
Of
we look
course.
out into the audience and
Obviously.
you see a younger demographic people, in addition to some of the older people that have seen the band, it's very inspiring. It's great to see the face that was your face when you were 14 or 15 years
Yeah.
old.
And it's
you're-
bizarre. It's
Yeah.
bizarre to see what he's talking about is especially when we do festivals, there'll be a lot of older people like us, a lot of older people, right? But the first 10 rows are generally these young people. I was like, you weren't even born, 20 years ago, let alone when this music came in. I mean, how do you even know all these songs?
Internet.
The internet,
The
or
internet.
whatever their parents, Guitar Hero, whatever the avenue, YouTube, a lot of YouTube. Like Rudy said, I think YouTube is still the biggest streaming site on the internet. It far outweighs Spotify or Apple Music or Pandora or anything.
I called my wife at home in the hurricane zone in North Carolina. I said, "What are you doing?" So I'm watching the Guess Who on YouTube.
There you
I
go.
rest my case.
There you go.
Yeah, YouTube has, like, a lot of people have said that the internet hurts the music industry because yes, it is a little bit, it's kind of harder to sell records and whatnot, but think about how much exposure like people get, like so many older bands that I would have never have heard of if it wasn't for.
You can reminisce like my wife was doing, or you can learn like young people go and say, oh man, American Woman, wow, 14 albums? What's all this? There's discovery and there's reminiscing. You can do either on the internet.
Awesome.
It's there.
Definitely. So before we go, I want to thank you guys so much for your time. The future
Yeah,
is
Alex.
what it used to be.
Yeah, it certainly is.
Latest record. What else could we be expecting from the Guess Who Army coming for the rest of 2018 into 2019?
Well, the record just came out today, so let's let that come out
Yep.
and nurture this little baby, and we'll go from there. How about that?
Awesome. There's something you just can't announce it yet, and you'll.
Oh no, there's nothing in particular other than just an ongoing experience.
It says here, heavy New York.
Yep.
You're from heaven.
Guess what? I'm heavy and I'm mostly metal.
You heard it from Gary, everybody. Oh my God, I might have to make that my permanent intro now.
I'm heavy.
I'm so sick of my usual theme song now, so I might
I'm
just.
heavy and I'm mostly metal.
Yeah, he can't go through this.
I can't go-
He has to go through the special scanner at the airport. He's made of metal.
Well, you told me to say that. So.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Everybody, we are here with the Guess Who. Pick up The Future Is
You know what?
What it used to be.
The Rolling Stones said it better. Whatever genre you're in, it's only rock and roll, but I like it.
Yeah.
You know?
What more do you need? I think the best rock and roll needs very little to no explanation.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Just feel it.
Yep.
All right, man.
Exactly. The Guess Who, everybody.
Yeah.